A bat carried a gem and flew into a cave. Suddenly, it began to swell all over. The ugly bat transformed into a woman, and she held a ruby in her mouth. In a world where vampires exist, there are 13 rubies. Each of them possesses different superpowers. During a vampire war, most of the rubies were lost. Only a few remained, kept by different families. One of them was in the possession of Alisa's grandmother. They belonged to a German vampire family. They sustained themselves by feeding on blood. They concealed their identity and lived in the small town. They stayed confined in small rooms, forbidden to go outside. Occasionally, a small bird would fly in. Alisa would be delighted by it. The girl couldn't bear the life of confinement. She opened the window when her father was not around. Although her younger brother tried to stop her, Alisa had already made up her mind. Alisa climbed onto the roof. Excitedly, she greeted the children passing by. She flew through the night sky. Unexpectedly, she frightened a human boy. The boy was holding a book. Alisa also liked this author very much. They had a pleasant conversation, but when the boy held her hand, Alisa couldn't control herself and revealed her fangs. She quickly turned her head, saying that she had a toothache. The boy, upon hearing this, went back to his room to find medicine. However, Alisa took the opportunity to escape early. The girl ran in a thick fog. She jumped onto the bustling street. She picked up a beautiful blood orange to look at, but she didn't realize that the items on the stall needed to be paid for. The shopkeeper grabbed Alisa. The girl showed her fangs as a demonstration. The shopkeeper realized that she was a vampire, immediately shouted for help. Alisa quickly ran away. Someone chased after her with a cross. She climbed up the wall and returned home. This completely exposed the location of the entire family. Alisa apologized in a panic. The father looked out the window and saw a crowd gathering outside. He immediately went to wake up the grandmother in the coffin. The old woman smelled a familiar scent. It was the smell of silverware and garlic. The vampire hunting Red Mask had arrived. The younger brother grabbed his sister and questioned her why she was so interested in what was happening outside. Alisa looked troubled. She didn't want to confess, but the other person kept pressing for answers. She had no choice but to take her brother's hand and place it on her chest. Alisa unexpectedly had a human heartbeat. At that moment, the father noticed that Calvina was downstairs. This person was an exceptionally skilled vampire hunter. The grandmother immediately activated the ruby, sending a distress signal to Magnus in the distance. Then she lit the curtains using a candlestick. She called the family to leave this place. Unexpectedly, halfway through, Alisa felt a palpitation. Her right hand emitted a glow. A scene flashed into Alisa's mind. In the tranquil depths of the mountains, an elder awakened from the coffin.
The spark has awoken again.
Alisa didn't have time to think. The Red Mask had already burst in. She hurriedly went upstairs and hid in a corner. The Red Mask stormed into the house and picked up a family photo. It turned out that the man from earlier was not Alisa's father. He was just the family's servant, Heinrich. According to legend, Alisa's biological parents had walked into the sunlight together. Just as Calvina was about to discover Alisa, her subordinate came to report that they had found a secret passage. Calvina immediately called everyone to go downstairs. Alisa thought that everyone had left. She was about to turn and leave. Unexpectedly, she ran into a bearded man head-on. She quickly ran to the attic room, but the bearded man caught up with her and held a knife against her. Alisa lied and said she was human. She claimed she entered out of curiosity to see what was happening. Surprisingly, the bearded man actually believed her. However, Alisa nervously looked at the mirror beside them. The man followed her gaze. He was shocked to see that there was no girl in the mirror. Alisa thought to herself that this was not good. She quickly kicked him over. Then she escaped through the attic window. She dodged and jumped onto the street running wildly. Unexpectedly, she was grabbed by a member of the Red Mask. Fortunately, the person turned out to be Heinrich in disguise. At this moment, the light in Alisa's palm flashed again. Familiar scenes appeared again. She seemed to awaken a great elder. That person wore a ruby ring on their hand. The elder felt someone was secretly watching him. Then the light disappeared. Heinrich recognized it as the spark, but he refused to explain it to Alisa. He insisted that she must hide her abilities well. He promised to reveal the truth to Alisa when the time was right. After saying that, he pulled her away. They quickly found their grandmother and younger brother to regroup. Magnus, who received the distress signal, arrived in time. When Calvina arrived at the scene, Alisa's family had already boarded the airship. However, Calvina wouldn't let these vampires go. She went home and told her son to pack up and leave, and the boy in front of her was the one Alisa had encountered. Nicky seemed to not support his mother's career. Reluctantly, he followed Calvina on the journey. On the other side, Alisa curiously looked around. The people on the ship stared coldly at them. The grandmother took Alisa away. She instructed her to be careful on the ship. However, when night fell, Alisa's palm started to glow again. She once again caught a glimpse of the Great Elder. The person took out a bat from a cage, let it kiss the ring on the Great Elder's hand. The next moment, the bat transformed into a human form. The Elder covered the woman with his cloak. Through their conversation, we can learn, the Great Elder in front of them is Dracula. He has been asleep for 300 years. The rubies from each family are made from Dracula's tears, combined with Elizabeth's blood. The light disappeared at this point in the scene. Alisa stepped out of the coffin, and wrapped her left hand, sneaking to the empty deck. She was extremely excited by the freedom she had never had before. Suddenly, a boy pulled her to the side, communicating with Alisa through telepathy, saying they shouldn't let Magnus see them wandering around. Among the major clans, only the Drakkars clan can read minds. This clan is cold and cruel. Alisa suddenly lost her good impression of the person in front of her, especially the leader, Magnus. This person stole many rubies during the war. The blonde boy heard her thoughts. He said, "I am Magnus' son." Alisa awkwardly apologized, but the boy immediately returned to the cabin. Heinrich also pulled Alisa back to the room. Alisa had just wanted to rest. The light flashed again. Dracula knelt in front of Elizabeth's statue. He wanted to retrieve all the rubies to resurrect his beloved. Dracula handed his ring to the Batwoman, instructing her to retrieve the rubies on the ship. If the mission succeeded, Dracula would release all the bats. The woman swallowed the ring, and restored the original shape, flying into the sky. Alisa, who was watching, realized that the ship was in danger. Suddenly, a blue-eyed boy approached. The ship had already docked on his family's coastline. He invited Alisa to go out and eat. Alisa's younger brother was playing with a small mouse in his arms. The children from other clans saw Alisa, showed contempt in their eyes. The blonde boy asked Alisa to introduce herself. Alisa mentioned her surname. This resulted in more mocking laughter. They looked down upon Alisa's family. The blue-eyed boy defended Alisa. He threw a Bible at the blonde boy. The other boy was immediately burned by the book. The blue-eyed boy picked up the Bible. He was the heir of the Nosferos family. He was fearless of the power of the Bible. The blonde boy was very angry. He lifted the other boy from a distance. His two sisters burst into laughter upon seeing this. Another black boy at a nearby table wanted to join the fun. He unleashed lightning from his open palm. He blew up the girl's skirt. The two of them began to fight. Alisa was not one to be underestimated either. To protect the blue-eyed boy, she bravely rushed to the blonde boy. The whole restaurant turned into chaos, until Magnus called for everything to stop. These children obediently sat down. The leading clan chief stepped forward to speak. There were originally 13 clans in Vampire. After an internal vampire war, only 5 remained. The Nosferos family from Italy, the Drakkars family from Norway, the Virad family from England, and the Pyrrhus family from France, and Alisa is from Vermalia family, the German vampires. In order to resist the Red Mask together, to achieve prosperity and peace in the future, they decided to establish a school, where all the heirs could learn together, teach each other the abilities of the 5 clans. Meanwhile, the Batwoman flew to the PA. The children were saying goodbye to their families. She immediately spotted those rubies. She telepathically communicated with the distant Dracula. Unexpectedly, his shadow suddenly appeared. It turned out Dracula possessed the ruby of the Batwoman's family. Hence, his shadow could move independently. It constantly monitored the Batwoman. The woman regained her original form, and hid in Magnus's car. She left with the group. The heirs on the ship also started their learning. Alisa was looking forward to the new curriculum. The first skill, deholification. It belonged to the blue-eyed boy Luciano from Nosferos family. Teacher Umberto was responsible for teaching. He opened a large box and chanted a spell silently. Afterwards, he reached in with his bare hands, and pulled out a cross. The children were frightened, revealing their fangs. But Luciano, after finishing the spell, could also touch the cross. The black boy found it boring. He didn't want to stay here. He asked the blonde boy to use his superpower to knock over the box. The two of them took advantage of the chaos and left. But Alisa saw everything. The blonde boy warned Alisa not to reveal the secrets everywhere. Later, the class returned to normal. The principal next to them received a message from Magnus, learning that Magnus was attacked by bats, and lost a ruby. The children were unaware of the imminent danger. They were still listening to the teacher's lecture. At this moment, Umberto noticed the 2 missing students. The blonde boy, Lars, and the black boy, Malcolm, were gone. The teacher turned around, and asked Alisa sitting opposite him. To his surprise, she remained silent. He brought Alisa to meet the principal. Alisa had to tell the truth. Meanwhile, the 2 mischievous students arrived on the street. Malcolm opened his hands and gathered lightning, controlling the dark clouds to gather above the heads of several women. They ran into the nearby building to take shelter from the rain. The 2 boys found it fun, and followed them inside. Little did they know that the building was a church. The 2 of them felt dizzy, disoriented, and weak all over. They instantly fell to the ground. The nun thought that the 2 of them were possessed by evil. She took out holy water and sprayed it on Malcolm. Countess arrived at the critical moment. She hypnotized the nun who opened the door. She captured the 2 people. and took them back to the ship. The principal punished the two boys to do a week of duty. Lars glared at Alisa with resentment. Afterwards, Alisa apologized to them. She even willingly helped with cleaning. Lars didn't understand what Alisa was thinking. He wanted to read her mind. He ended up seeing Dracula in Alisa's mind. Before he could ask her about it, Alisa was taken away by Heinrich. He didn't leave with his grandmother. Instead, he stayed behind to accompany Alisa. After Alisa returned to the cabin, she was called by the Countess. She said she knows Alisa's mother. She even knows that Alisa has a heartbeat. Alisa returned to the coffin. This time she unexpectedly arrived directly at Dracula's location. Dracula was in a tavern. He noticed Alisa's presence. He realized that she was the person secretly watching him. He forcefully pushed Alisa back to her original position. Alisa woke up from the coffin again. Meanwhile, Dracula drained all the people in the tavern. He gradually regained his youthful appearance. He walked towards the bar, and awakened one of the men. He asked the man to assist him in finding the rubies. Dracula was about to say where to go. Suddenly, he sensed that Alisa was watching him. He immediately severed the connection. This caused Alisa to miss out on crucial information. At this moment, someone knocked on her coffin. Carissa had just opened the lid, and she was splashed with water by Lars' sister. Carissa bared her fangs and pounced. However, she was no match for the sisters, and could only be bullied. In the classroom later, Alisa stared blankly at her notebook. She remembered the last time she saw her mother. It seemed that there was a glimmer of light in her mother's hand. The principal noticed that she was daydreaming. He called Alisa. Let Alisa introduce her family's abilities. Alisa found it difficult to speak. The ability of a vampire family is actually love. It's really laughable when said out. As expected, her classmates were mocking her ability. The principal asked Alisa to sit down and listen attentively in class. Then, he introduced the abilities of the original 13 clans. Among them, the Tova family from the Netherlands was mentioned. They can parade in the water. This is very advantageous for vampires who cannot swim. And at that moment, Dracula was rowing a boat with his servant. He sensed the Tova family's ruby. So, he threw his servant into the water. He controlled him to retrieve the ruby from the water. Alisa saw the whole process secretly. Lars noticed that she had something on her mind. Once again, he used mind reading to probe her thoughts. Unexpectedly, he saw Alisa's mother from her memories. Alisa realized that he was intruding on her thoughts. She immediately stopped and left the restaurant with a tray in her hands. She walked to the cabin where the servants gathered. She found Heinrich and pressured him to reveal information about her mother's past. He said that the master died in an internal vampire war. Her mother couldn't bear losing her loved one. She chose to turn into ashes under the sun. Alisa expressed her confusion. Is this what love is? She asked Heinrich. What is the brightness in her hand? But the man refused to say. He only asked Alisa to keep the secret. These lights will seek the next host. Alisa hated that he wouldn't say anything. They parted in discord. Alisa returned to the classroom and opened the cabinet. She took out a bottle of holy water. She wanted to teach the Draca sisters a lesson. So, she replaced their perfumes with holy water. The next day, when they woke up and sprayed perfume, they were indeed burned by the holy water. Lars realized it was Alisa's doing. He didn't expose her in front of everyone. On the other side, the principal gave the ruby to the Countess. He entrusted his wife with keeping it. A bat secretly observed his actions. It immediately reported to Dracula, but the master told her not to worry about the ruby for now. Instead, follow Alisa closely to gather information. At that moment, a girl led a wolf onto the ship. Everyone became tense and bared their fangs. Werewolves were believed to be extinct. They thought she was a shapeshifter. The girl said her name was Ivy. She claimed to be a descendant of the Lycana. The principal didn't believe the girl's words. He grabbed her, but Lars, through mind reading, confirmed that her words were true. Ivy said that the wolf beside her is not a pet. It is her brother. See more. The principal agreed to let Ivy stay at the vampire school. Others held hostility towards werewolves. Only Alisa took the initiative to show goodwill to Ivy. They even became desk mates. Ivy wanted to copy Alisa's notes. Alisa immediately handed them over to her. However, she forgot about her doodles on the notebook. They were about sparks and visions she had seen. A bat hiding nearby saw the notebook. Today's lesson was about distinguishing vampires. They are broadly divided into two categories: bloodline and shadow. Bloodline refers to those born as vampires. Their lineage can be traced back to Dracula. Shadow vampires are humans transformed into vampires. They lack supernatural abilities and have to follow bloodline vampires' commands. Lars even refers to the shadows as slaves. Alisa doesn't like this terminology. They argued through telepathy. Seeing this, Ivy asked Alisa if she and Lars were a couple. The boy became a bit shy upon hearing this. However, Alisa immediately denied it. A calm day came to an end. Alisa rarely made friends. She got along well with Ivy. At night, Alisa couldn't sleep in her coffin. The sparks on her hand were also inactive. She had no idea about the rules it operated by. Alisa planned to go to the library and check it out. She woke Luciano up and asked about the location. The boy agreed to draw a map. Lars, who was nearby, overheard their whispered conversation. He quietly followed Alisa. The Batwoman didn't want to fall behind and flapped her wings to catch up, but Alisa didn't know that the most dangerous ones were not these two. It was actually Calvina and her group who also arrived in the town. Alisa followed the map and entered the library. The Batwoman walked to the next room and transformed into a human form. She observed Alisa's every move through the glass. Alisa was looking for books related to Dracula. Surprisingly, she actually found one. Meanwhile, Calvina's son, Nikyu, also came to buy books. The two book enthusiasts were delighted to meet each other. Lars felt a bit jealous upon seeing this. Nikyu invited Alisa to have lunch together. The two of them left the library, chatting and laughing. The Batwoman informed Dracula about the book. It seemed that the book contained crucial information. Dracula instructed her to destroy it as soon as possible. The scene shifted back to Alisa's side. The restaurant Nikyu found was located below the sunlight. Alisa didn't want to decline the invitation. She followed him with an umbrella. The two of them sat at a table and chatted. Alisa ordered entirely in Italian. Nikyu was impressed by her ability to speak multiple languages. Excitedly, he grabbed Alisa's hand. Lars couldn't bear it and got angry. He turned around and left the restaurant. He even brushed past the Batwoman. The woman sneaked into the kitchen and grabbed a waiter. She changed into a uniform and started tidying up the tables. However, the chef discovered a dead body on the ground. He let out a shocked scream. Seeing the situation turning bad, the Batwoman snatched the book and ran away. Alisa grabbed Nikyu and chased after her. They ran wildly on the street. Unexpectedly, they were surrounded by the police from both sides. Alisa and Nikyu were locked up in a detention center. At that moment, a police officer rushed into the office. He mentioned the waiter who was bitten to death and had her clothes stripped off. Alisa speculated that the perpetrator was the person who took the book, and it was highly likely that the culprit was not human. Alisa needed to escape as soon as possible. The boy wanted to use a wire to pick the lock. Alisa, on the other hand, forcefully pried open the iron bars of the window. She knew that her strength was abnormal, so she put the iron bar back in place. She told Nikyu that the fence was loose, but she didn't have enough strength and needed help. The boy nervously stepped forward. Unexpectedly, with a little force, he easily broke the pillar. Alisa took the opportunity to praise his strength. The two of them climbed out of the window and successfully escaped. They maneuvered through the alleyways. However, they hadn't gone far. Alisa saw the police arguing with the Red Mask. Calvina was also among those people. She had to hurry back to the ship, but Nikyu reluctantly held onto Alisa. He hugged her tightly and made plans to meet tomorrow. This was the first time Alisa felt warmth. The glow in her palm brightened again. This time Alisa saw herself opening the stone cave. She walked up to a knot in the rope. She reached out her hand to the rope. Instantly, she arrived at a beach. Her family and friends were all there. Even her mom and dad were there. Alisa shed a tear. She was completely startled. In theory, vampires couldn't shed tears. As Alisa rushed back to the ship's side, she found the principal counting the number of people. Just a few hours ago, the police chief came to talk to the principal. They had a gentleman's agreement. As long as the vampires didn't attack the townspeople, the police chief wouldn't interfere with them. But the death of the waiter shattered the peace. The principal wanted to count the number of people and find the culprit. At this moment, Ivy found Lars. She asked him to help Alisa, who had gone out. She knew that this boy liked Alisa. Lars had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. He teleported behind Alisa. He told her to board the ship from the starboard side. Alisa listened to him and acted accordingly. Heinrich couldn't find Alisa and was very anxious. Lars swaggered onto the ship. He attracted everyone's attention. Alisa took the opportunity to blend into the crowd, but Lars was locked in the cabin. Umberto walked into the cell carrying a box. He wanted to take advantage and torment Lars. Then he took out a cross. Lars quickly recited a spell. He fully mastered the technique of deholification. However, in an instant, the teacher picked up a silver cross again. The boy couldn't resist this. He panicked immediately. Fortunately, the Countess arrived. She took Lars to the office. The principal compared his teeth spacing. They were different from the wound impressions provided by the police chief. Therefore, Lars was no longer a suspect. At the same time, Ivy grabbed Alisa. She asked her to honestly confess why she went off the ship. Alisa had no choice but to say she encountered a vampire who bit someone. However, she didn't disclose any further information. At this moment, Heinrich angrily dragged Alisa away. Ivy, seeing this, took a quick breath. It seemed like she also had a secret that couldn't be revealed. Heinrich was also questioning Alisa about the reason for getting off the ship. He asked her if she had drunk human blood. Vampires, before the age of 18, must never consume human blood. Alisa retorted irritably. I didn't drink blood, but I almost kissed him. For God's sake, she blurted it out. She had no choice but to confess about meeting the human boy. Heinrich was almost furious when he heard it. He said it was all his fault. Lately, he's been distracted because of something. He hasn't taken good care of her. Alisa smelled the scent of gossip. After asking, she found out that Heinrich had fallen in love with Rafaela. She was the shadow vampire on the ship, yet shadow vampires are forbidden to fall in love. The two promised to keep each other's secrets. Meanwhile, on the other side, Ivy found Lars. She told him that Alisa had encountered a vampire in town, and she knew that person belonged to the Upiri clan. It turned out that the Batwoman's name was Tonka. The ruby ring that Dracula gave her originally belonged to Ivy's family. At this moment, Alisa also arrived on the deck. Ivy was about to talk to her. To her surprise, Alisa's hand suddenly emitted a light. This time she saw Dracula holding onto the rope knot, breaking into a beautiful illusion by the seaside. As he arrived, the world flashed with lightning and thunder. Alisa's parents left with it. Alisa woke up from the illusion. Her face was filled with tears. What's even stranger is that Dracula's eyes were also moist. What kind of ability does this girl possess? At this moment, Alisa didn't know how to explain. She hurriedly escaped from the deck. She was caught by the Countess. She took Alisa to the office to examine her teeth. It didn't match the teeth of the culprit. Alisa returned to the classroom. Lars and Ivy approached Alisa. They promised to keep the secret of her tears. And Lars knew that the beam of light was Spark. His father had talked about the power of Spark. It was enough to wipe out the entire vampire race. At this moment, the Countess walked into the classroom. All the vampires on the ship had been screened. The culprit who bites people wasn't here. Little did they know, the Batwoman was in the classroom. She had transformed into a small mouse hiding in the classroom. Today, we are going to learn about the abilities of the French Pyrrhus family, how to communicate with animals. The heir, Joanne, will give the lecture. Malcolm sneered at this ability. The Countess acted decisively. She dragged him to the window, and pulled open the curtains. The light burned Malcolm, making him scream in pain. Joanne released a large swarm of moths. Then she slowly recited a spell. The moths quickly blocked the window and saved Malcolm. The Countess told him to remember today's lesson. After class, Alisa and her group went to the ship's underground cabin. Ivy told Alisa. She saw Dracula turning Tonka, and the whole process of Tonka swallowing the ruby ring. So they followed Tonka all the way to the ship. She originally planned to leave here once found the ruby, regardless of the fate of the people on the ship. But Alisa's attitude changed her mind. Ivy was willing to stay and help Alisa uncover the secret. Alisa told Heinrich about someone trying to steal the gemstone, asking him to keep an eye out. Heinrich was on a date with Rafaela. Alisa couldn't help but warn the person. It's best to act discreetly. Little did she know, Heinrich planned to seek approval from the tribal council, requesting permission for shadow vampires to fall in love. He and Rafaela might get in trouble because of this, but Heinrich was already deeply in love. Alisa got angry and ran out. Heinrich chased after Alisa, hoping that she would understand his feelings. Alisa was persuaded by Heinrich. At this moment, a scream came from the room where Rafaela was. She was originally checking if the ruby was safe, yet she was ambushed by the Batwoman. When the two arrived, Rafaela was already dead. Alisa chased the Batwoman and ran out. The Count and Countess, who woke up one step later, mistakenly believed that Heinrich had harmed Rafaela, ordered someone to lock him in the dungeon. Heinrich, seeing his beloved dead, became disheartened and resigned. He voluntarily chose to face the judgment of the sun. It would be carried out early tomorrow morning. On the other side, Alisa arrived in the small town, lost sight of the little bat. Unexpectedly, she encountered Nikyu and Calvina. She was even invited into their home for a meal. Alisa was very nervous, afraid of her vampire identity being exposed, but she unexpectedly discovered that Nikyu's family also had that book. Calvina had some suspicions about Alisa. She deliberately took out a cross necklace, and handed it to Alisa. Seeing this, Nikyu pulled his mother aside, and reprimanded her. Alisa's hand was burned by the cross. She quickly recited a spell she learned in class. Surprisingly, it actually worked. Alisa put the necklace on. Only then did Calvina feel at ease, and let the two go out on a date. Alisa immediately returned the necklace to Nikyu. The two were having a good conversation. Unexpectedly, Ivy rushed over. Alisa gestured for her to wait. She ran back and kissed Nikyu, and then she followed Ivy and left. Upon learning that the Countess intended to execute Heinrich, Alisa went to confront the principal, but the principal demanded evidence from Alisa to prove that Heinrich was not responsible for the harm. Lars took the opportunity to use his mind-reading ability to probe the people present. He discovered that the principal had known in advance about someone planning to steal the ruby. Punishing Heinrich was a win-win situation. It would prevent from causing panic due to someone targets the ruby, and also punish the shadow vampire who engaged in a secret romance. The three of them decided to find a way to prove the connection between Dracula and Tonka. The book in Nikyu's house was the clue. She called her friends and went to the town. Alisa deliberately distracted Nikyu. Lars and Ivy took the opportunity to steal the book. The book contained records of Dracula's story, when he was fighting on the battlefield. Someone deceived Elizabeth, that her husband had died in battle. Overwhelmed by grief, the woman chose to end her life. When Dracula returned victorious, he found his beloved dead. When he embraced his wife and cried out in pain, he attracted a demon. Dracula exchanged his soul for eternal life, but Elizabeth couldn't accept becoming a monster. Still unwilling to live on, Dracula shed tears as he embraced his wife. Tears mixed with Elizabeth's blood. 13 rubies were born from this. The knot in Alisa's vision is significant. If it is untied by Dracula, the gates of hell will open. Elizabeth can be resurrected because of this, but if it is untied by a vampire with a human soul, it will end the lives of all vampires. As for the spark in Alisa's hand, it represents the humanity stripped from Dracula. That's why Alisa can sense him. On the other side, Tonka strives to obtain the rubies. She targets the unhappy Malcolm. She easily confuses the weak-minded boy. With Malcolm's assistance, she hides in her brother's coat. Meanwhile, Dracula arrives at a cemetery. The beloved family's ruby was buried here. Finding it will grant him immunity to sunlight. The family sealed a beam of sunlight in the tomb to protect the ruby. Dracula can only wait for the right moment. Once the light disappears, he jumps in to find the ruby. The shadow vampire shields the outside from daylight. Dracula successfully obtains the ruby. Alisa sees everything in secret. Lars interrupts her thoughts. He says someone is approaching. Sure enough, the principal appears. He asks her to accompany him for Hendrik's final journey. In the presence of everyone, he walks onto the deck. Unexpectedly, Alisa's brother, Tammo, suddenly hugs the Countess. It was actually the bat in his pocket causing mischief. The boy tears off the ruby. The Countess immediately notices. She quickly wakes up Tammo. In the scuffle, the ruby falls to the ground. Tonka takes the opportunity to fly out of the pocket. She transforms into human form and grabs the ruby. The Countess rushes up to engage in a fight. Nobody pays attention to Heinrich on the deck. With the sun about to rise, Lars thinks of something. He telepathically communicates with Alisa, saying that you are now one with Dracula. You have the abilities he gained. For example, the ability to withstand sunlight that he just acquired. Alisa quickly rushes to the deck upon hearing this. She pushes Heinrich into the cabin. She bathes her entire body in sunlight. She truly doesn't suffer any harm. This is Alisa's first time experiencing sunlight. She is intoxicated by it. In the next moment, Tonka bites the Countess. Carrying the ruby, she flies away. The wound on the woman's hand matches the evidence. Now Hendrik's suspicion is cleared. Everyone bids farewell to the unfortunate Rafaela together. Heinrich personally cremates his beloved. Tonka leaves with the gem in hand. She flies to a cave and transforms into human form. She reports the incident to her master. Alisa can actually expose herself to sunlight. Dracula is surprised to hear this. He instructs her to continue stealing the rubies, and to monitor Alisa at the same time. Soon Alisa enters a dream state again. She sees Dracula holding the acquired ruby. He earnestly speaks to the soul of Elizabeth. After Alisa returns to reality, she immediately wakes up Luciano. She asks about the abilities of the Countess ruby. The parents of the little boy have 2 rubies. The one stolen yesterday was the Arufat ruby. It allows people to communicate with the deceased. Alisa realizes, maybe she can talk to her mother, so she learns from Luciano how to use the ruby. However, Alisa's first attempt is not successful. Just as she dejectedly walks out of the cabin, her father's spirit actually appears. Through this conversation, Alisa learns that her biological father is a human. That's why she has a heart, but they couldn't talk for long. The power of the ruby is limited in time. Nevertheless, Alisa is still very happy. She can't wait to share with Ivy. After a while, Lars enters the restaurant. He ignores the enthusiastic Malcolm, and walks straight to Alisa, not noticing his friend's disappointment. The 3 of them go to the basement to confirm Alisa's current abilities. Not afraid of sunlight, swimming, and talking to the dead. Control shadows and objects. At this moment, Heinrich comes over and calls Alisa away. He asks her why she's not afraid of sunlight. Heinrich warns Alisa, don't let the power blind your eyes. On the other side, Tonka has complete control over Malcolm. She wants to entice him to drink human blood. Shortly after, a new class begins. This class is about mind reading. It is facilitated by Lars' 2 sisters. The Countess wants to probe Alisa's secrets, so she makes Alisa undergo mind reading. All of Alisa's thoughts are revealed in front of everyone. Sympathy and pity for Ivy, even the fondness for Lars, and that unforgettable human boy, they are all ruthlessly exposed. Alisa is deeply humiliated, and tears start streaming down her face. Everyone is shocked by this. Alisa can no longer bear it. She immediately knocks down another girl. She even chokes the Countess from a distance. Alisa is almost controlled by Dracula's power within her. Fortunately, her brother wakes her up in time. Alisa runs out of the classroom in sadness. She walks to an empty place in the town. She wants to summon her mother to talk, but her mother refuses to appear. Alisa jumps into the sea, but it also doesn't calm her down. Alisa locks herself in a prison cell. Meanwhile, Ivy looks serious. She picks up a pair of scissors, and goes to find Seymour. Just as she was about to say something important, she immediately changes the topic upon seeing Alisa. What secret is Ivy hiding after all? On the other side, Dracula encounters trouble. A one-eyed man named Abraham. He comes with a gun loaded with silver bullets. He also wears a ruby on his hand. Dracula ignores the man's warning. He throws the collected rubies into a grave. Abraham immobilizes Dracula's hands. He possesses the Caminada family's invisible ruby from Switzerland. He has been secretly searching for Dracula. He wants to use Dracula's powers to find more rubies. Meanwhile, Alisa is forced to confess. Yet, with Hendrik's hint, she still keeps the secret of the spark. Alisa says she can't feel her powers at the moment. Dracula must be in trouble. After speaking, Alisa starts experiencing intense pain all over her body, because Abraham is torturing Dracula. He pushes him into a room filled with crosses. The girl can't bear it and faints instantly. Even Lars can't probe into her mind. There is only one dangerous method for now. That is for the three siblings to join forces and enter her mind. But this method is forbidden. Lars has only seen his father do it once. If he fails, he will also get lost in Alisa's mind. The principal disperses the crowd. Lars enters Alisa's mind. Inside, it's like a giant maze. Lars sees Alisa flash by. He swiftly pursues the figure. Lars loses sight of Alisa. Suddenly, he sees scattered coins on the ground. It's Nicky sitting high up, tossing coins. Lars can't help but get angry when he sees him, but in the blink of an eye, Nicky disappears again. Alisa's voice comes from the darkness. She keeps asking Lars for help. The boy holds a torch, and searches for the source of the voice. He discovers Alisa's childhood memories. Alisa's mother is holding her, and giving her instructions. She also has sparks in her hands, but in the next moment, they realize they are being watched, and also disappear from the spot. As Lars goes deeper, he sees himself. He is actually kissing Ivy. Alisa's consciousness questions, "Don't you like me? Why are you kissing someone else?" Immediately after, the entire mind is in turmoil. Lars is knocked down to the ground. After everything calms down, he discovers a coffin. Behind the coffin is the room filled with crosses. Dracula is trapped in a chair. Lars quickly regains consciousness. He finds the source of the problem. Only by saving Dracula, Alisa can escape the danger. At this moment, Tonka sneaks into the room. She transforms into a human form to secretly observe. She wants to report to Dracula, but Dracula is too preoccupied. He sits in the chair and groans in pain. He refuses to reveal the location of the beloved's ruby. Suddenly, Dracula feels a surge of energy. It turns out Lars put the Countess's ruby on Alisa's chest. Dracula uses the power of the ruby to break free from the handcuffs. When Abraham approaches, the chair is empty. Dracula suddenly appears and grabs him. He takes Abraham's invisibility ruby. He successfully leaves the room with crosses. On the other side, Alisa also regains consciousness. She thanks Lars' family. She returns the ruby to the Countess. The principal instructs everyone to rest soon, patiently waiting for the next class. But Malcolm, who is served as a lecturer, appears burdened. Tonka, who was secretly observing, reveals a sinister smile. Alisa cannot sense the original multiple energies. She guesses that Dracula didn't carry all the rubies with him, but she discovers a new ability, invisibility. So she uses this ability to find Lars. She wants to thank him for what happened earlier. When she hugs Lars, the boy sharply notices the sound of a heartbeat. Before Lars can figure it out, Alisa interrupts his confusion with a kiss. After kissing Lars, Alisa runs away. Lars was about to go back and rest, but he accidentally finds Malcolm's coffin open. He goes out to find his friend, and sees Malcolm talking to a mouse. Lars doesn't think much of it. He tells Malcolm to stay away from the mouse so he won't get bitten. As soon as Lars leaves, Tonka reveals her true form. She hands fresh human blood to Malcolm. Meanwhile, Alisa is not sleeping. She was about to go find Ivy, but she sees that Ivy is cutting her hair. Once a vampire's hair is cut off, it can never grow back. Ivy has to confess that she is a shadow vampire. The little wolf Seymour is the true heir. His family perished in the war. Seymour turned the ordinary human Ivy to accompany him as a shadow vampire. They depend on each other to find their family's ruby. At this moment, the spark in Alisa's hand flashes again. Because they are holding hands, they unexpectedly enter the illusion together. They see Dracula throwing the ruby into a grave. The vampire probably doesn't want Alisa to become powerful. That's why the rubies were temporarily sealed. Then the two of them return to reality. Alisa knows she must get ahead of Dracula to untie the knot in the cave, but she has no idea where the knot is. Heinrich is the one who knows the most about the inside information. Alisa immediately goes to find him. Heinrich reluctantly pulls her to a secluded place. He takes out a notebook written in code. It was left behind by Alisa's mother. The answers Alisa wants may be in the book. She opens the yellowish notebook. The front page contains a warning left by her mother, advising her daughter not to trust the clan leader. The one to be most cautious of is the Drakkars family, Lars's father. The notebook records information about the spark and the knot. As for the method to decipher the code, her mother couldn't explicitly say, but she believes her daughter will figure it out. Another person who speaks in riddles. Alisa has no idea about the method. She flips through the writing, which was hard to understand. Frustrated, she throws it on the ground and leaves. Ivy knows that Alisa needs to be alone. She picks up the notebook and doesn't catch up with her. On the other side, the principal finds other clan leaders. He reminds everyone that Dracula has awakened. Alisa sees Dracula in her mind. The crisis is imminent. Alisa goes to the town to relax. Unexpectedly, she encounters Nikyu. The boy has been waiting by the wishing well. He initially wanted to take Alisa around. Unexpectedly, Calvina suddenly appears. It turns out the woman wants her son to join the Red Mask. Nikyu didn't want to join initially, but Alisa says she's willing to go together. The three of them arrive at the headquarters. The Red Mask knows that vampires gather in this place. They are planning to seize the opportunity to annihilate them. Alisa blends in with the crowd. She has a sense of unease rising in her heart. At the same time, Malcolm's class begins. His family's gift is controlling the weather. Malcolm summons thunder and blizzard. He reaches out and throws it towards Lars. The classroom immediately becomes chaotic. The Countess tries to calm her classmates as much as possible. Unbeknownst to her, a small mouse approaches. Her attention is distracted by Malcolm. Tonka instantly appears and grabs the Countess. Malcolm has completely lost control. He keeps attacking Lars relentlessly. Anger and human blood enhance Malcolm's power. Ivy attempts to awaken his conscience, but Tonka keeps inciting him. Malcolm's mind is blinded. He follows instructions and holds Ivy hostage. Tonka also grabs the Countess. They arrive on the deck. They trap Lars and the others behind a door. At that moment, Alisa arrives in time. She urges Tonka and Malcolm to release them immediately. Lars pushes open the door controlled by Malcolm. He communicates with Alisa through telepathy. He asks Alisa to divert Tonka's attention. Just as the sun is about to appear, Malcolm controls the dark clouds to cover the sun. Alisa, in her anxiety, confesses that she possesses the spark, asks Tonka to release the Countess. She is willing to take the Countess's place as a hostage, but as soon as the Countess hears about the spark, she immediately realizes Alisa cannot fall into the hands of Dracula. She had promised Alisa's mother to protect the spark at all costs. The Countess instructs Lars to take Alisa away. Then, she snatches the blood from Tonka's hand and throws it into the sea. Malcolm, seeing this, jumps into the water. As soon as he leaves the deck, sunlight penetrates through the dark clouds. Tonka can only hide in the shadows. The Countess immediately fell down weakly upon seeing the sunlight. Alisa, empowered by the Ruby of Belove, she stands in the sunlight and watches the Countess die. Angry, she lunges at Tonka and drags her into the sunlight. The Batwoman is incinerated into ashes. The stolen ruby and the ring she had swallowed at the beginning drop to the ground. Alisa picks them up and puts them on the Countess's son. She embraces the grieving little boy. A somber atmosphere hangs over the Elizabeth. Later, everyone retrieves Malcolm from the water. Vampires cannot swim at all. They easily lock Malcolm up in prison. According to the law, the boy will face the sun and undergo the judgment of death. Ivy finally retrieves the Lycana gem and turns the heir, Seymour, back to his original form. At this moment, Lars calls out to Alisa. He worries about the instructions left by Alisa's mother, and he hopes Alisa can trust him. Unlike other members of the Drakkars family, Alisa holds Lars' hand and decides to trust him. Besides, Lars has something else to say. He was worried about Alisa just now, so he used mind reading and found out that the Red Mask is preparing an attack. On the other side, Calvina's informants are reporting what they saw and heard. It seems that there was a fight among the vampires on the ship. 2 members were wiped out. Surprisingly, one of them was a human girl, because she could stand in the sunlight. Calvina immediately thought of Alisa, that mysterious and suspicious girl. The scene shifts back to the Elizabeth. Everyone goes to visit Malcolm together. Alisa is willing to let him off the hook, but Malcolm must help to teach everyone how to control weather abilities. The heir needs to learn and grow quickly. Unite to fight against the Red Mask. As the lesson is halfway through, the headmaster who went out returns. Lars warns everyone not to mention Malcolm's betrayal and keep the Red Mask a secret. We must not let the headmaster initiate a full-scale war against humans. Luciano and Alisa are responsible for informing Countess's death. The boy embraces his grieving father. The headmaster mourns the loss of his beloved in silent sobs. Meanwhile, Calvina in the shadows, seeing Alisa, confirms her suspicions. Suddenly, a few whispers come from behind. Dracula emerges from the darkness. Dracula's yellow-green eyes shine, confusing the vampire hunter Calvina. She keeps silent about today's events, and doesn't reveal Alisa's true identity to Nikyu, but Alisa shows up at their door. She finds Nikyu, and suggests attending another Red Mask gathering, with the intention of figuring out the enemy's plan. Lars secretly follows Alisa, coordinating with her actions. Meanwhile, the heirs are in class. It's Seymour's turn to teach. His ability is shape-shifting. He can transform into any animal form. Just as everyone is focused, Heinrich rushes in with an anxious expression. He says all the clan leaders have returned. Ivy's face changes, reminding everyone not to forget their promise to Alisa, not to reveal the Red Mask's plan for attack for now. Lars's father, Magnus, as soon as he returns, he goes to visit the headmaster. The man is devastated after losing his wife. He can only sit in a chair, constantly repeating the words his wife left behind. Be strong, be brave. Magnus immediately gathers all the heirs, asking everyone what exactly happened. Where did Lars go? He also uses mind reading, but the heirs have learned blocking techniques. He can't really harm the children. Unable to fully gather information, the heirs keep their mouths shut. On the other side, Alisa arrives at the base. The people here are training through the night. Alisa uses telepathy to communicate with Lars, asking him to sneak in and find useful information. Lars sneaks into a room, and approaches a tactical map. It shows the Red Mask's battle plans. At that moment, two men walk in. Lars immediately hides in the darkness. The two men complain about Calvina being late at a critical moment. In fact, the woman is with Dracula, and there's also an unexpected character, Umberto. It turns out this person is also Dracula's informant. He informs Dracula that all the clan leaders, and the rubies are on the ship. The spark in Alisa's hand suddenly flickers. Immediately, her consciousness also arrives at the scene. Dracula embraces Calvina. He boasts about his success in recruiting the Red Mask. Alisa realizes that Calvina is being controlled. She returns to reality and takes Nikyu's hand. She leads the boy into a fantasy realm. Nikyu sees his mother being deceived by Dracula. He wants to shout desperately, but the next second, he returns to reality. Nikyu finally learns Alisa's identity. The Red Mask immediately surrounds them. Alisa gets straight to the point. She asks Nikyu for help. She must stop Calvina. She will figure out the vampire's side. After saying that, she leaves with Lars. The two of them quickly return to the Elizabeth. The clan leaders immediately surround them and question them. Alisa states that Dracula is right here. He has control over the Red Mask leader. His goal is to steal all the rubies. Alisa says she has a plan, but the clan leaders don't want to involve children. Fortunately, the headmaster steps in at the right time. He understands these brave children. He decides to trust Alisa once. Meanwhile, Calvina has turned into a shadow. She pushes away Nikyu, who tries to stop her. She leads the Red Mask to infiltrate the Elizabeth. But the ship is empty. There is no sign of vampires anywhere. The Red Mask gathers on the deck. Just as they are confused, Lars' voice comes. The vampire students are on the mast. They swarm down and surround the crowd. The elders hide in the ship's bottom with hemp ropes in their hands. The Red Mask threatens with wooden crosses in their hands. But the heirs are not afraid of crosses now. Alisa's younger brother extends his hand, and summons lightning. The abilities of several major families have already been shared. Their power is beyond imagination. Calvina has to reveal her fangs. The Red Mask realizes their leader is also a vampire. They all jump into the sea to escape. Everyone captures Calvina, but there is still one Red Mask member who didn't leave. He steps forward and removes his mask. It turns out to be Nikyu. The boy doesn't understand why his mother became a vampire. He is also heartbroken by Alisa's deception. Nikyu leaves the Elizabeth feeling lost. The heirs are very happy. They finally repelled the Red Mask. They rescue the elders and set sail officially. They plan to leave Italy. Dracula watches the Elizabeth closely in the dark. He thinks to himself that this is just the beginning. Meanwhile, Lars walks up to Alisa. The two young people understand each other's feelings. They kiss on the deck. No matter what crises they may face in the future, they both have the confidence to face them together. The first season ends. A low-budget teenage vampire film. In fact, the setting and acting are good, but there are many logical flaws. The vampire clan leaders are too weak. Tonka can steal so many rubies on her own. It completely highlights Toolman of Alisa. Alisa's half-human, half-vampire attributes, a tragic upbringing with both parents deceased, combined with innate spark to enhance her. She carries the mission to save the world. Along the way, she gains a group of loyal followers. A perfect Miss Popularity character, buffed to the max with abilities. The plot is cliché yet satisfying. If you like me, please click the subscribe button. The man clenched the ruby in his hand. Lightning gathered in the palm of his hand. The sea surface instantly stirred up a storm. Legend has it that Elizabeth's blood and Dracula's tears created 13 extraordinary rubies. Obtaining these rubies grants power. After the clan war, some rubies went missing, while others fell into the possession of various vampire families, becoming the source of their power. Dracula, in order to save his beloved Elizabeth, swore to collect the rubies and turn humans into a puppet army, exchanging them for his lover from the hands of demons. The half-human, half-vampire girl Elisa successfully prevented Dracula from taking the power rubies. Now, she is leaving Italy with her lover Lars, preparing to set sail for England to visit the vampire Virad family, and continue her studies on vampires there. However, that spark energy has set a different path for Elisa. Naples, Italy, is the territory of the Nosferatu family. A human boy named Nicu lies on the street. His mother, deceived by Dracula, has already turned into a shadow vampire. Elisa, the love of his life, is also a vampire. Nicu felt abandoned by the world, and had lost hope for his life. At this moment, his mother, Calvina, was locked in the underground dungeon of the vampire fleet, awaiting the judgment of the sun. Elisa felt somewhat sympathetic since Calvina was, after all, Nicu's mother. Suddenly, her spark power surged, and Elisa, through the dazzling light, saw Dracula approaching Nicu. Dracula used the salvation of Calvina as bait, attempting to persuade Nicu to join him, yet Calvina had already turned into a shadow vampire, and even if she were rescued, she would merely be a puppet. Nicu scorned the idea of joining the vampires, but Dracula claimed he could restore Calvina to normal.
I know you're there, Elisa, and I'm still coming for my rubies.
Elisa wasn't intimidated by Dracula. Instead, she went to ask the elders if there was a way to restore shadow vampires to normal. The elders confessed that some masters could perform rituals to release the shadows, allowing the puppets to regain their true selves, and restore their human identity.
Why don't we release them all?
The elders couldn't help but scoff, asking why else would they do it. Of course, vampires needed servants. If all the shadows were released, who would serve them? Elisa was provoked by the shamelessness of the elders, and accidentally let slip that her friend, Ivy, was a shadow. As a result, Ivy was relegated to the logistics department since the upper floors were reserved for heirs and elders. Ivy suddenly reverted to her servant status, and intentionally started ignoring Elisa. At the same time, the elders set a date for punishing Calvina, planning to throw her onto the deck to be exposed to the sun tomorrow. After learning the news, Elisa couldn't help but blame Lars since his father was one of the decision-makers. Elisa couldn't bear to see Calvina burn to death in the sunlight, so she secretly opened the prison door and let her escape. Unexpectedly, Calvina betrayed, and seized the opportunity to injure Lars' father, intending to steal the ruby for her master, Dracula. Fortunately, Elisa discovered it in time, and locked Calvina in a coffin. However, Lars' father was injured by silverware, and was on the verge of collapse. Feeling ashamed, Elisa ran to the deck and cried. She tore up her mother's notes, believing that she was unworthy of being the chosen one with the spark. Little did she know, those scattered pieces of paper formed a map. Elisa unexpectedly deciphered the clues left by her mother. With this, she could untangle her knot and defeat Dracula. On the other side, Nicu also made up his mind that he would do whatever it takes, even if it means joining forces with Dracula, to save his mother. But before that, Dracula wants to give Nicu a test. If he can replace his mother as the leader of the Red Mask organization, Dracula promises to release Calvina from her shadow identity. On Elisa's side, the elders, in order to punish her for releasing someone without authorization, lock her up in a dungeon for reflection, and the cell is right next to Calvina's. At this moment, Calvina has already regained her sanity, and forgotten the recent events. She doesn't even remember having a son. This is a common problem among shadow vampires. They cannot hold on to memories and their sense of self. Greedy for information, Calvina eagerly asks Elisa to tell her more about her son. Elisa lavishly praises Nicu, not hiding her fondness for him. Meanwhile, Nicu is currently facing the defiant Red Mask on his own. The easiest way to gain their respect is through a duel. Nicu defeats the troublemaker, and earns the respect of the Red Mask. Dracula, who has been observing in secret, leaves satisfied. Meanwhile, Lars, in order to save his father, changes the ship's course, and heads back to their ancestral home in Norway. He asks the people of Troms to save his father, but they demand to meet Elisa in return. An elderly woman from Troms explains that the silver remaining in Lars' father's body is locking his beating heart. Only by allowing Elisa to enter Lars' father's mind can she awaken the dormant heart. Elisa immediately agrees. She infiltrates Lars' father's mind, and sees the elders of various vampire clans planning to imprison her mother. Elisa continues forward, holding a torch, and finally catches up with Lars' father. He snatches away the ruby of the Grimer clan, this ruby that can make vampires immune to sunlight. Lars' father raises his hands and shouts, "Any vampire who wants to leave this battlefield must kneel before the Drakkars family." Just as he finishes speaking, his brother rushes over and informs him that their father's condition is not good. Lars' father quickly runs to his father's side. Knowing that his father doesn't have much time left, his father removes the ruby of the Drakkars family, hands it to his most trusted second son. Lars' father,
Why are you here?
I'm here to get you out.
Get me out! I'm with my family where I belong.
Alisa quickly explained. Your brain has been invaded by illusions. Everything you see now is an illusion. The real Lars is waiting for you in the real world. Lars' father gradually regained his sanity. He noticed that his wife had turned into a grotesque figure. Hesitatingly, he grabbed Alisa's hand. In the next moment, they returned to reality, but Lars' father needs some time to rest and recover from his coma, before fully regaining consciousness. As for Alisa, she couldn't forget her mother from the illusion. Could it be that her mother was still alive? The next day, Lars instructed his subordinates to send his father to the Emerald Forest for treatment. During this time, he would take his father's place, and temporarily become the leader of the family. His uncle had been diligently by his side, appearing to support Lars wholeheartedly. However, Alisa still remembered what Lars' grandfather had said about the dark side of the eldest son. Alisa intended to remind Lars of this, but he was called by his uncle to attend a meeting. Alisa had no choice but to investigate the imprisonment of her mother first. Through subtle clues from the illusion, she learned that her mother was likely held captive in Prison of Eternal Light. Lars' second sister, Helen, mentioned that the prison was located in the northern part of the forest, and expressed her willingness to take Alisa there. Accompanying them was Ivy, the shadow vampire. At that moment, the three of them had not noticed that the mysterious one-eyed man, Abraham, was following behind them. On the other hand, Lars was not swayed by his uncle's influence. Instead, he expelled him from the meeting room. The reason was simple. It was a meeting of elders from various clans. Uncle didn't have the qualifications to participate, so he left with a grudge. Lars' eldest sister, Cindy, worried that he might cause trouble, and bravely followed after him. Unexpectedly, she discovered that Uncle had a connection with Dracula. Meanwhile, at the meeting of the elders, they engaged in a heated discussion about how to deal with Alisa and Calvina. Lars was concerned about his lover, but couldn't go against vampire rules. Therefore, he could only postpone the matter, and suggested temporarily imprisoning the two in Prison of Eternal Light. However, the elders' expressions changed slightly, and they said it couldn't be done, because there was a special prisoner in the prison. Lars found it strange since the prison had been abandoned for centuries. He wondered who was imprisoned there. The elders had no choice but to confess that the person locked inside was Alisa's mother, Anna. Upon hearing this, Lars rushed out to share the good news with Alisa, only to learn from Shadow Heinrich that she had gone to the forest with Ivy and Helen. Lars immediately chased after the three. At that moment, Alisa and the others had arrived outside Prison of Eternal Light. They entered the dungeon. Alisa saw her mother at a glance, despite the sunlight shield between them. However, Alisa had already established a connection with Lars, who possessed the Grimer clan's ruby, allowing them to share the ability to withstand sunlight. She eagerly embraced her mother, and Alisa asked her mother why everyone had imprisoned her. Anna explained that the vampires wanted to protect their own clan. The elders were afraid that if she successfully resolved her knot, all vampires would revert to being human. That's why they imprisoned Anna, and falsely claimed she was dead. However, if Dracula finds the knot first, all humans in the world would become his shadows. As Alisa, the bearer of the spark, she had to make a difficult choice. While the mother and daughter were chatting and catching up, Lars arrived in time. He lifted the sunlight shield, granting Anna her freedom after centuries of captivity. Meanwhile, Cindy hurriedly returned to the base to inform everyone of Uncle's betrayal, but was preempted by him. Uncle captured the Pyra's family elder and took her ruby. Using the power of the ruby, Uncle summoned a pack of vampires' natural enemies, wolves, and threatened the elders to surrender their own rubies. As the young heir was held hostage by Uncle, Alisa's grandmother was the first to hand over her ruby. The other elders followed suit. At the same time, Abraham broke into the prison.
They're coming! Hide!
Lars had just planned to leave when he foresaw through the rubies that his uncle had arrived. Upon hearing this, Anna quickly hid her daughter, and then concealed herself within the sun shield, trying to pretend as if Alisa had never been there, because Uncle had multiple rubies in his possession. He easily took Lars away, while the remaining elders were all imprisoned. Alisa came up with a plan to rescue Lars. Unexpectedly, sparks flickered in her palm once again. She saw the devil asked Elizabeth to tell Dracula, "Help is coming your way." Alisa believed that the help here must be referring to Uncle offering the ruby to Dracula. She had to stop him as soon as possible. Ivy and Helen continued to follow behind to assist. They first rushed back to the base to prepare for diverting the pack of wolves surrounding the heir. and strive to rescue everyone before sunrise. Meanwhile, Alisa, the only one unafraid of the sun, became the designated bait. Ivy and Helen led everyone into a house. Soon, the sun emerged from behind the clouds. Alisa swiftly sprinted to evade the wolf pack. The hungry wolves were about to pounce on her. Suddenly, Helen rushed over and dragged Alisa into the house. It turned out that these cottages had hidden passages, which allowed her to arrive just in time to help. Alisa crawled into the secret passage to go to the small cabin where the heir was hiding and meet her younger brother. She told him, "Our mother is still alive." On the other side, Uncle was arguing with Lars. He blamed his father for not allowing him to inherit the position of clan leader, and resented his brother for taking over the entire family after the incident. By letting Lars take control of the entire family, he wished to kill Lars. But for now, this boy had other uses. The uncle said, "I have prepared a boat in the east. You must board the boat and leave tonight. Otherwise, I will kill Alisa's brother, and all those little heirs." Lars had no choice but to agree. The uncle said, "After sunset, we will depart for Russia." Abraham, hiding in the shadows, heard everything. He quickly found Alisa, and extended an olive branch of cooperation. "Since our goals are to destroy Dracula, why not work together?" Unfortunately, Alisa had no favorable impression of Abraham, as he was a renowned vampire hunter.
You've hunted my kind for years.
Not anymore. I just want Dracula.
He tried to convince Alisa. Abraham had no choice but to confess. He knew where the uncle was taking Lars and the rubies. Upon hearing this, Alisa agreed to cooperate. On the way, Abraham also told her that Dracula had buried some of the rubies in the beloved grave, which ordinary vampires couldn't even approach. So he needed Alisa's help.
You're a vampire too?
Something like that.
It seems that this vampire hunter also had untold stories. Meanwhile, Ivy, who was looking for Alisa, encountered the old woman from Troms. She said a bunch of cryptic words, and then pointed her finger at Ivy's forehead. On Nikyu's side, Dracula asked him to go to Russia with him.
We're going to get my rubies.
Dracula had a simple reason for choosing Nikyu, because Alisa liked this boy a lot, so Nikyu would definitely be useful. Dracula had his minions create a silver safe, and entrusted it to Nikyu for safekeeping. The box was meant to hold the rubies. On the other side, Alisa returned to the Elizabeth with Abraham. She was preparing to sail to Russia to rescue Lars. While Anna disagreed with her daughter's actions, she believed that finding the knot was the most important. Alisa was very disappointed upon hearing this. Anna had to call Ivy. She asked Ivy to relay a message to Alisa. The last puzzle piece regarding the knot is hidden in the Vermalia house.
Tell her it's always been right behind her.
As nightfall gradually approaches, several brave heirs make up their minds to follow Alisa and save Lars. Unexpectedly, Ivy grabs Heinrich, wanting to find out where Alisa hid the notebook. Between the lines, she reveals her dissatisfaction with this rescue mission, believing Alisa should prioritize the bigger picture and focus on finding the knot. Little did Ivy know that Alisa's brother overheard their conversation. With departure time approaching, Alisa rushes to bid farewell to her mother. Unexpectedly, sparks ignite once again, pulling her into illusion created by Dracula.
I'm bringing a guest. I believe you'll know each other.
The person behind the carriage is obviously Nikyu. Unfortunately, he cannot see Alisa's ethereal form.
Come and get him.
Alisa returns to the Elizabeth. Heinrich watches the ship set sail from the shore, but he suddenly realizes Alisa's brother, Eric, is missing. It turns out Eric was worried about his sister, so he secretly hid on the Elizabeth with his good friend. The two of them see Ivy finding the notebook, as she completes the puzzle inside. Suddenly, a loud noise comes from the deck. Abraham notices a thunderbolt crack ahead. The ruby capable of creating this phenomenon is in the possession of Uncle. He and Lars are nearby. Uncle gazes at the Elizabeth behind him, firmly believing they won't survive this storm. The sea churns with towering waves. Rainwater mixed with seawater strikes the cabin. Ivy and Helen are still studying the notebook. They encounter a difficult problem. They can't decipher the date on one of the maps. Suddenly, Eric appears.
I think I know this one.
The date is Alisa's birthday. Ivy quickly understands. Alisa is the last one with the spark. She's the only one who can find the knot. Interestingly, this knot is quite magical. If Alisa unlocks it, all vampires in the world will become human. If Dracula unlocks it, everyone will become shadow vampires. Ivy shares her speculation with Alisa, but before Alisa can react, companion Malcolm comes to take Alisa away. Because daylight is approaching, she must go out to take over Abraham's shift to steer. The storm at sea intensifies. Alisa is quickly knocked down by a big wave. Seawater rushes through the gaps in the hull. Everyone can only use their hands to block the holes. Ivy anxiously watches the wet notebook. Her pupils suddenly turn white. The power left inside Ivy by the old woman takes effect. The waves on the sea gradually calm down. Vines with green leaves plug the gaps in the ship. Helen feels something is amiss. She secretly plucks a leaf and hides it in her pocket. On the other side, within Russia, Nikyu, under Dracula's instructions, transfers the hidden ruby from the graveyard into a silver box.
Keep this box close.
To prevent Nikyu from betraying him, Dracula keeps the key to the box himself. Meanwhile, the uncle and Lars successfully arrive in Russia. Lars questions the other person. Why did we come here, after all?
Ska du få möta stamfaren din.
Lars doesn't understand the meaning behind these words. However, the answer is soon revealed. Through her spark, Alisa sees the progress in Russia. Indeed, the uncle is going to meet Dracula. He wants to present the ruby to him, in exchange for what he desires. Dracula can't be bothered with these people, nor fulfill the promises he made to the uncle. He only wants the ruby. Dracula pushes the uncle into the sunlight, watching him turn to ashes, and then instructs Nikyu to pick up the uncle's ruby, and place it all in the silver box. Immediately after, he threatens Lars to follow him. Now, the two boys Alisa cares about the most have fallen into Dracula's hands. She watches everything happen but is powerless to stop it. Alisa's consciousness returns to her body. By now, the storm has completely passed, but her mood is exceptionally heavy, because Dracula has obtained all the rubies. Ivy reminds Alisa, we must first go to the Vermalia family, to get the final puzzle piece. Otherwise, rescuing Nikyu and Lars would be in vain. Alisa still wants to argue a few words, but Nikyu's mother and Lars' sister agree with Ivy's viewpoint. The most important thing now is to find the puzzle piece, and solve the knot before Dracula. Alisa has to give up rescuing Nikyu and Lars, and change course to the Vermalia family. Everyone has been exhausted all day, and wants to rest and sleep for a while. Unexpectedly, Eric grabs Alisa, and reminds her that Abraham still has a heartbeat. He is also a half-human, half-vampire. On the other side, Lars accidentally discovers that although Dracula has obtained all the rubies, he doesn't know the exact location of the knot. On the late-night Elizabeth ship, changes in Ivy become more and more apparent. She doesn't know what the old woman did to her. Just at this moment, Ivy hears the call of the old woman. The other party asks her to listen carefully to the voice of the mother of all. Ivy calms down, and actually hears the sound of a feather pen. She carefully follows the sound, and discovers Abraham copying the map. Ivy doesn't trust this vampire hunter, so she tells Alisa about it. Alisa immediately confronts Abraham upon hearing this. Unexpectedly, he explains that the cabin leaked last time, and almost destroyed his notes. He says he just thought it would be safer to keep a copy. After saying that, he hands over the map he copied last night to Alisa. Abraham, in order to prove his loyalty, confesses that he has a heartbeat. It turns out that Abraham is a descendant of both vampires and humans. His vampire father was cruel and ruthless, causing his mother a lifetime of suffering. That's why Abraham became a vampire hunter. But he alone cannot eliminate all the monsters. Only by helping Alisa resolve the knot can the vampire empire be brought to an end. Just at this moment, land appears on the horizon. They have finally reached their destination. Alisa, Calvina, and Ivy go to find the map. The rest of the people stay behind to guard the Elizabeth. Before leaving, Alisa instructs Eric to keep an eye on Abraham. After arranging everything, the three of them enter the harbor city, and quickly find the Vermalia family residence. Several Red Mask members are standing at the door. Alisa and her two companions disguise themselves as party members and approach. They overhear the password for entry. They easily blend in and enter. It turns out the Red Mask is having a meeting inside. They are planning how to eliminate all vampires. Alisa and her two companions navigate through the excited crowd. They go upstairs to search for the final puzzle piece. Unexpectedly, sparks from Alisa suddenly glow. She suspects that the puzzle piece must be nearby. Ivy picks up a family photo on the table. It shows a young Alisa with her siblings. She suddenly remembers the hint left by Anna.
Tell her it's always been right behind her.
Could it be that the puzzle piece is hidden behind the photo? Ivy immediately takes apart the frame. Indeed, she finds the final puzzle piece behind it. In their excitement, they accidentally make some noise. This attracts the attention of the Red Mask members at the door. At this critical moment, the Red Mask member in front removes their mask. The person turns out to be Heinrich. Alisa joyfully rushes into his arms. But the next moment, sparks flash again. Dracula's face is reflected in the broken glass.
Thank you for showing me the way.
The Red Mask downstairs also notices their presence. At this moment, Alisa has found the final puzzle piece. As long as it is combined with the map in the notes, they can determine the location of the knot. Unexpectedly, they are besieged by the anti-vampire organization, the Red Mask. At a critical moment, Calvina comes up with a plan. She pretends to hold Alisa and the others hostage. The Red Mask recognizes Calvina as the leader of their headquarters. They immediately cease their attack.
Do you have a holding cell?
Yes.
We'll take them to it.
Calvina falsely claims to interrogate the 3 vampires to uncover their remaining forces. However, the local leader is not a fool. He senses that something is amiss, so he secretly keeps the puzzle piece. In order to gain their trust, she volunteers to execute a vampire first. Calvina knows that Alisa is not afraid of sunlight, so she intentionally chooses her to face the punishment. A lackey takes Alisa outside.
How is that possible? That she doesn't burn in the sun?
The 2 of them successfully obtain the cell keys and the puzzle piece. Alisa immediately rescues Ivy and Heinrich. The 4 of them leave this place. On the other side, inside the Elizabeth ship, her companions notice that Alisa hasn't returned. They want to take the risk and go out to search. Malcolm disagrees with this approach, because Alisa instructed them not to leave the cabin no matter what happens. Unexpectedly, Abraham volunteers to go out and meet Alisa. Eric knows that his sister doesn't trust Abraham, just as they regret letting him go. Alisa and the others return safely. Everyone is curious why Heinrich is here. It turns out he noticed Eric sneaking onto the ship. He was concerned, so he came early to meet Vermalia and the others. From the beginning, Heinrich believed Alisa would make the right choice, to give up going to Russia, and come to Vermalia to find the puzzle piece. The reality proved that he didn't wait in vain.
Where's Abraham?
Abraham found the leader of the local Red Mask. It turns out they knew each other long ago.
When I destroyed Dracula, and I get my hands on all the rubies, I'll finally have enough power to rule over them.
Abraham's true intention was to rule the world with the ruby, to surpass all vampires and humans. Alisa has already fallen into a trap. Seeing the map being completely burned, she reaches into her pocket, realizing that the hand-drawn copy is also gone. Abraham must have stolen it. Meanwhile, Dracula leads Nicu and Lars to the border of Transylvania. Lars takes advantage of the gap when repairing the carriage. He quietly approaches Nicu. He tries to persuade him to help open the silver box, so they can destroy the ruby, to prevent Dracula from opening the knot. Nicu is convinced by Lars. So, after Dracula falls asleep, Lars bites through the iron chain with the key. Dracula didn't actually kill Lars, but he won't tolerate such a situation happening again. Meanwhile, Alisa also learns through Sparks that Dracula will arrive in 2 days. They must prepare for battle. She not only needs to retrieve the map copy from Abraham, but also find a way to steal the ruby. That night, Ivy dreams of the eerie old woman, seeing her about to lose control. Luckily, Helen wakes Ivy up. She recognizes the patterns on the woman's legs, knowing something has happened to Ivy.
You're becoming the next lady.
This is the birth of a new prophecy. Ivy will gain the power of nature and establish a connection with the mother of all. At that moment, Abraham pays a visit. Abraham asks Alisa to help him collect the rubies. In return, he promises to hand over the map copy. However, Alisa has been deceived once before. She won't easily agree to cooperate. On the other side, Ivy worries that Alisa might be deceived. She uses the power of Noadi to eavesdrop on their conversation. Unexpectedly, in the middle of listening, a pair of hands suddenly extends from the wall and drags Ivy into an illusion. The old woman said the knot is hidden in the nearby cave. I can take you in to have a look. Ivy explains that she doesn't have the spark and can't enter at all.
But your best friend does. She'll help us.
Just as the words fell, Alisa's spark mysteriously appeared and successfully opened the cave door, but she wasn't sure what happened. Ivy followed the old woman into the cave. The old woman explained that the spark is actually Dracula's humanity. When it combines with the ruby, it forms Dracula's heart, becoming the key to unlocking the knot. And every person attempting to untie this knot must pass the 5 tests of humanity. Alisa needs Ivy's help to pass the final test. Then the old woman reminds Ivy that the power of the spark will gradually diminish. If you can't untie the knot before the solar eclipse ends, Dracula will win, and the power of the spark will also disappear. Since Ivy is immersed in the realm of consciousness, her physical body remains in a coma. This greatly worries Alisa and the others. Unexpectedly, Calvina suddenly goes mad and instantly loses control. This is a sign that Dracula is getting closer. Only when the distance between Calvina and her master, Dracula, is reduced, will the shadow vampire Calvina be under his control. Just then, Ivy suddenly wakes up. She tells Alisa, "You must complete the mission within 3 days. Otherwise, when the solar eclipse ends, everything will be lost." In other words, Alisa has to cooperate with Abraham to exchange the ruby for the map. In order to find Dracula's ruby, she intentionally released Calvina, because the shadow vampire will definitely go to find her master, so they just need to follow behind. The group follows Calvina to an abandoned factory. Sure enough, they see Dracula. Niku immediately embraces his mother, and asks Dracula to release Calvina from her shadow form. But unexpectedly, he goes back on his word. Alisa steps forward upon seeing this. She shouts for Abraham, who is waiting outside. He brings a large group of Red Mask members. A great battle becomes inevitable. Both sides roar and charge towards each other. This battle can be described as a lose-lose situation. Abraham shoots Dracula with a silver bullet, but Alisa also develops a high fever, just like Dracula. The group transports both of them back to the Elizabeth. However, Malcolm and the others are captured by the Red Mask during the chaos. During this time, Lars, who recovers the ruby, attempts to enter Alisa's consciousness to save her, but unexpectedly discovers that Alisa's thoughts are intertwined with Dracula's, and have become inseparable. He cannot separate Alisa from it.
She has to fight the fever herself. She has to find her own way out.
Meanwhile, Alisa falls into Dracula's realm of consciousness, and witnesses the vampire's past. He once had a happy family of 3, until Constantinople was attacked by the Turks. Count Dracula was ordered to fight against the enemy. Unexpectedly, during his absence, his son was kidnapped by the enemy. Rumors circulated that Dracula was defeated and died a miserable. Countess Elizabeth, devastated by grief, chose to end her own life. So when Dracula returned victorious, he only saw his wife's lifeless body. Dracula, devastated by the loss of his beloved, felt unbearable pain, and chose to renounce God. His humanity turns into sparks and separates from his essence, even if it means enduring the flames of hell for eternity. Dracula has no regrets for wielding his sword against God for his beloved. Meanwhile, Eric, in order to rescue Malcolm and the others, goes alone to the Red Mask's base to make a deal with Abraham. Abraham instructs Eric to steal the remaining 3 rubies, in exchange for Malcolm, Joanne, and a copy of the map. Eric looks puzzled upon hearing this. He knows Lars has 2 rubies, but he is unaware of the whereabouts of the 3rd one. Abraham says the remaining one is the beloved ruby, hidden inside Dracula's stomach. Malcolm, on the side, shakes his head repeatedly at Eric, hoping he won't do something foolish. In Dracula's realm of memories on the other side, Alisa attempts to persuade him to let go of the knot, even if it means making a deal with the devil. It cannot change what has already happened. Just as she finishes speaking, Elizabeth unexpectedly appears. She also doesn't want Dracula to make further mistakes.
You still have a beautiful soul, my love.
At this moment, that beautiful soul transforms into sparks and rests in Alisa's palm. The appearance of his wife shakes Dracula's beliefs. At this moment, Eric hurriedly runs back to the ship. He confesses Abraham's suggestion. Upon hearing this, Alisa proposes cooperation to Dracula.
Why do you think I would do that?
You need me to defeat him.
After being archenemies for 2 seasons, they suddenly transform into temporary allies. They decide to join forces to eliminate Abraham, and then address their own issues. After reaching an agreement, both of them regain their consciousness. To show sincerity, Dracula finally removes Calvina's shadow identity, returning memories and her true self. Yet, before setting off to find the knot, Alisa must first rescue Malcolm and Joanne. Niku and his mother go ahead to scout, to understand the Red Mask's patrol patterns. However, all of this is a cover-up by Abraham. He has already set traps in secret. Alisa remains completely unaware of this.
It's a trap. You're being played.
Dracula has a plan to rescue Malcolm and the others. He asks Alisa to hold him hostage to divert attention, while the others take the opportunity to rescue them, steal the rubies and the copy of the map. Ivy still doesn't trust him. Dracula is left with no choice but to regurgitate the beloved ruby from his stomach, and entrust it to Alisa for safekeeping, as a proof of his trustworthiness. Meanwhile, Malcolm, who is being held captive, doesn't just wait idly. He suddenly realizes he has turned 18. He has the ability to manipulate human thoughts forcibly. However, the entire base is under Abraham's influence. Malcolm can only utilize 70% of his power. He can't make the Red Mask assist in opening the door, but he can command them to steal the copy of the map.
How is that map gonna get us out of here?
The lackeys quickly steal the map, to avoid attracting Abraham's attention. Malcolm and Joanne divide the work. One person memorizes half of the map. Unexpectedly, Abraham returns at a critical moment. He immediately notices his subordinates being hypnotized by vampires. He orders his men to search them, to check if Malcolm and Joanne made copies of the map, but they memorized it in their minds. The search yields nothing. Meanwhile, Dracula, Alisa, and the others have arrived at the Red Mask's base. They are prepared for battle. Abraham is also ready for them. He is adorned with numerous rubies. Alisa first presents 2 rubies and Dracula behind her. She demands Abraham to release the hostages first, before she hands over the 3rd ruby. The Red Mask brings out the bound captives. Unexpectedly, Malcolm shouts at Alisa, "Don't give him the ruby. He won't let anyone leave." Abraham urges Alisa to quickly hand over the ruby. The few individuals execute their tasks meticulously according to the plan. Unexpectedly, Abraham suddenly uses the power of the ruby. He lifts several airs into the air. In a critical moment, Ivy's energy erupts from within. Countless thick vines surge towards Abraham, dragging him underground. Nevertheless, Dracula takes the opportunity to slip away with the ruby and the copy of the map. It seems the alliance has come to an end. A new war begins immediately. Alisa uses sparks to detach her consciousness. In the blink of an eye, she instantly appears in Dracula's car. Dracula now possesses the copy of the map and the ruby. He even secretly made a copy of the last puzzle piece in Alisa's possession. This blueprint is a crucial key. Just as Dracula is feeling triumphant, he hears Alisa's question.
You really think I'd leave the real key lying around for you to copy? You think I'm that stupid?
It turns out that Dracula made a fake copy. He immediately shouts in anger. When Alisa returns to the Elizabeth, Malcolm and Joanne have already drawn a copy of the map. Based on their memory, Alisa then takes out the real puzzle piece and releases sparks through the holes, successfully locating the position of the knot. On the other side, Dracula doesn't give up either. He attempts to use the ruby as the key to unlock the knot's position. After all, the ruby is created from Dracula's blood and Elizabeth's tears. They are inherently connected to the knot. On the protagonist's side, victory is within reach. However, Lars appears gloomy, because no one knows what will happen to Alisa, who is half human and half vampire, after the keyhole is opened. Similarly, Alisa feels confused. She is not afraid of what might happen to her, but she fears losing the people around her. After all, whether it's her grandmother or Heinrich, they have already surpassed 100 years. Reverting to being human means losing immortality. Those older vampires might turn into a pile of bones the moment Alisa unlocks the keyhole. At this moment, a faint sadness fills the Elizabeth. They have finally arrived at their destination. Unexpectedly, Alisa's sparks reappear. She is shocked to realize that Dracula has actually deciphered the keyhole's position, and he arrived ahead of everyone else. Everyone quickly heads to the cave where the key is hidden. Unexpectedly, the area outside the cave is filled with crosses. Helen finds it strange upon seeing them. If the Eddie people want the vampires to unlock this key, why would they arrange crosses? After Alisa listens, she questions everyone. Does anyone feel uncomfortable seeing the crosses? Only then do they realize that the crosses here are not sanctified. They are just illusions to intimidate. They gather their courage and break through the defense line. Alisa uses sparks to open the stone cave's door. Next to it is Dracula's ruby. It seems he also used the power of the ruby to open the door. Without delay, they enter the cave. Ivy reminds everyone, to unlock this knot, we must face 5 tests. We have already passed the first test, crosses, just now. We must remain vigilant from now on. Only Dracula stands ahead. There are 13 mirrors inside the entire cave. By the initials on the mirrors, we can tell. Each mirror represents a clan. There is also a stone tablet on the ground. It is engraved with "You" on top.
I think we have to find our own clan's mirrors.
Upon hearing this, everyone stands in front of their respective mirrors. They see another version of themselves in the mirrors. The consciousness of the vampires is pulled into the mirrors, leaving only a lifeless shell standing in place. As a human, Nikyu looks confused, not knowing what has happened. At this moment, Alisa follows her darkened self and enters the illusion of the Elizabeth. She sees herself when she first arrived, being bullied by the other heirs. But this time, the darkened Alisa fights back.
This is the real you. Your soul is as dark as Dracula's.
The darkened Alisa tries to brainwash her. Even if you unlock this knot, the world will still fall into darkness. The darkened Eric also tries to brainwash the real Eric. Your sister doesn't care about you. She only loves Lars and Nikyu. That's why she insists on unlocking the knot, regardless of the lives of your grandmother and Heinrich. And if the knot is unlocked, your sister might die too. As Eric is about to waver, Alisa suddenly remembers the advice on the stone tablet. She quickly changes the conversation and tells Eric, "These dark and restless thoughts do belong to us, but everyone has a dark side. What we need to do is balance and suppress it." We must not let negative emotions control us. After hearing this, Eric indeed regains clarity. He instantly absorbs his darkened self. The siblings successfully leave the mirror world, and they give advice to their trapped companions.
You are what you are, good and bad. It's okay. Be proud of what you are. You don't have to be ashamed about anything.
Several heirs wake up one after another. They successfully pass the second round of tests. Then, a door appears in front of them. Ignoring Dracula, who hasn't woken up yet, everyone walks into the door. Inside, there is a glowing device. It is engraved with, "Survival depends on unity." The next moment, the walls start leaking water. Everyone rushes to block the gaps around, but it's all in vain. Malcolm remembers the inscription on the basin. He quickly gathers everyone in a circle. They all rotate the glowing device together. As expected, the water disappears the next moment. They pass the third challenge, but the problem is Malcolm, Eric, and Joanne cannot free themselves from the device. Alisa can only lead the remaining people forward. The fourth challenge is somewhat special. There is a large drum inside the tent. The old woman taught Ivy how to play it. Several stones are scattered in front of the drum. They are engraved with peculiar patterns. Ivy recognizes these hieroglyphics. They form a short sentence. Faith lies in one's confidence in oneself. At this moment, a lunar eclipse has begun, with the alignment of the sun, earth, and moon. Before the solar eclipse occurs, they must resolve the knot. On the other side, Dracula finally passes the second challenge. He was almost trapped in a beautiful illusion with his wife. Dracula hurriedly proceeds to the next level. Meanwhile, Ivy just needs to strike the drum correctly to unlock the fourth challenge.
I've never gotten it right. Not once. I have faith in you. We all do.
The inscription on the stone also said, "The secret to clearing this level is confidence." The support of her companions gave Ivy courage. She tightly grips the drumstick and strikes the drum in the order she remembers. Indeed, it causes the lunar eclipse to pause. Helen stays behind to accompany Ivy and continues striking the drum. Alisa and the other three continue moving forward. The fifth challenge presented by the knot is very tricky. She needs to choose between Nikyu and Lars. One represents a vampire, and the other represents a human. Alisa is hesitating. The moon above her head turns red again. This also indicates that Dracula has entered the fourth challenge. Alisa must make a decision quickly. In this moment of hesitation, both options are gone. Instead, Dracula appears leisurely. The reason for his fast speed is that Alisa had already cleared the previous challenges, long before Dracula's arrival. Dracula's appearance turns the final challenge into a multiple-choice question. Now, Lars, Elizabeth, and Nikyu are hanging in front of the knot. The next moment, Alisa's spark ignites. She senses the connection between the light and Dracula. Suddenly, she realizes something.
I'm not the one who needs to untie it. You do.
The spark was Dracula's humanity all along. Only when it combines with its owner can it influence the knot.
Your wife never wanted to be a monster.
Why did you do it, my love? Take the deal, turning me into a monster.
Alisa looks at Dracula, tormented. She can't help but think of another possibility. Perhaps they don't need to change the current situation. The world is not all black or white. Light and darkness are meant to be balanced.
We're not here to untie the knot. We're here to destroy it.
They finally understand. After Dracula bids farewell to Elizabeth, he destroys the knot with his own hands. Humans don't turn into vampires. Vampires don't all become human. There is still good and evil in this world. The scale maintains its balance. Everything returns to its original state, and Alisa finally sees her own heart clearly. She may still have feelings for Nikyu, but she has already fallen in love with Lars, who is always by her side. The story of the second season comes to an end. A conflict between black and white lasted for 2 seasons. In the end, the story reveals that white won. Yet, the ending indeed sublimes the theme. The world can't have only light, nor can it have only darkness. Only the coexistence of both can maintain order. As a half-human, half-vampire, Alisa serves as a bridge between the two realms. Her task is to restore humanity to Dracula. Together, they destroy the knot. If you enjoy my channel, please give me a subscription.